Why do we start a new year with promises to improve? Who began this tradition of never-ending pressure? I say, the end of a year should be filled with congratulations for all that we have survived. And I say a new year should start with promises to be kinder to ourselves, to understand better just how much we bear as humans on this exhausting treadmill of life. And if we are to promise more, let's pledge to rest before our bodies force us. Let's pledge to stop, to drink in life as it happens. Let's pledge to strip away the layer of perfection and reveal the flawed and wondrous humanity that we truly are inside. Why start another year gifted to us on this earth with demands on our already overstrained humanity, when we could be learning to accept that we were always meant to be imperfect? And that is where the beauty lives, really. And if we can only find that beauty, we can also find peace. I wish you peace in 2023. Everything else is just a part of it. May it be so.
Good morning. Welcome to this glorious morning. We welcome you here to the First Unitarian Society of Ithaca. With this warm weather, I thought that global warming had brought spring early. I was starting to get out my summer clothes, and then some of that white stuff came down. It's wonderful to see you all here this morning, newcomers, longtime members, those returning, and those watching online. My name is Jens Wenberg, and I'm your celebration associate today. Welcome. May we gather today and this year to nurture our connections, seek inspiration, and embrace change. If you're a newcomer here in the sanctuary, I invite you to fill out one of the pew cards and put it in the plate, these yellow cards. Or even better yet, go out to the newcomer table in the parlor and introduce yourself. If you're watching online, you can fill out the newcomer welcome form on the church website. By doing so, we keep you up to date on everything that's happening in the church. For those of you who are listening online, I'd like to invite you to come to a Sunday morning service and join our community for coffee hour. That's not online. So please take a moment, read the announcements in your order of service, and let me hit a couple of them that are important. Choir rehearsal is starting Thursday night at 7 o'clock with our new choir director, Jane DeMacos. Next Sunday, Adult RE will meet at 9 a.m. to hear John Gaines talk about modern-day Vietnam, a traveler's perspective. And then at noon, there will be a congregational conversation, Reimagining the Social Justice Council. Also, the library is now open and on the second floor, and you should go and visit. And Stephanie?
Good morning. My name is Stephanie Ortolano. I'm the music director here at First Unitarian. And I want to cordially invite all of you next Sunday. There's a lot going on next Sunday, but it is the next concert in our new concert series, Beacon on Aurora. Our artist is going to be Julian Taylor, who's coming from Canada. He's going to be fabulous. If it's anything like our last concert last month, it'll be an intimate experience. You'll feel like you're in his living room. The concert is, so it's Sunday, January 15th. Doors open at 6:30. The concert starts at 7. It is a $20 suggested donation, and if you are interested in helping out by baking some cookies or other goodies that will be for sale during the intermission, let me know. I know I have some people who are already ready to be ticket takers and things like that, but if you want to volunteer, find me during coffee hour, and I hope to see you there. Invite your friends.
Thank you, Stephanie. One last announcement, and that is don't miss this year's Stuffy Sleepover, January 28th. My stuffed frog went last year and had a wonderful time. Before we light our chalice, let's take a moment to greet those around us. We need a better gong. It's missing this morning. So for our chalice lighting, please join me in saying the chalice lighting words which are printed in your order of service. We light this chalice for the warmth of love, the tide of truth,
This month, we are collecting donations for the Advocacy Center. You can see the full list in your order of service here, but it will include things that are meaningful and provide comfort to children, teens, and adults who have experienced abuse. I have two baskets. Our third one seems to have gone missing over the holiday break, and if I have a couple of friends who want to come up as we sing our opening hymn, which is number 123, Spirit of Life, they're going to come along the aisles in case you have anything you'd like to put in this week. More opportunities all month long. We'll sing it twice through.
Spirit of life, come unto me.
baskets, you can set them right up here. So, good morning, friends. I am so delighted to start the new year here with you this morning. I'd like to invite anyone who would like to come up and join me on the steps to come on up and have a seat. Come on up, friends. So we're starting off a new year here, and we're going to start by exploring the many ways that we can find our center. And finding our center can mean a lot of different things. Today we're going to talk about finding our way to trust, how to build trust, and what to do when sometimes trust is broken. And that can happen in relationships, but it can also happen in the world around us when the rules change. Speaking of trust, if you haven't had an opportunity to open up the Wonder Box at all this year, could you raise your hand? If you haven't had an opportunity all year. You haven't had an opportunity, Alana? Do you want to come open it? What do you see in there? A jar.
Full of marbles.
And a bunch of marbles. Could I have the jar? And could you pick that box up and could you put it on the floor for your friends? Can we scoot this way? Can I come sit down here with you today? I've had a rough couple weeks. Can I come over here while we talk? I'm just going to sit. Whew. All right. Can you each take 1 or 2 marbles out of the box? And then can you close the box back up for me? Can everyone see me okay? You got a marble? Excellent. All right. Did everyone get just 1 or 2 marbles, and then can you close the box back up for me? You got 2? Okay. That's all right. Perfect. Can you close the lid on the box? Yeah, just like that. Great. All right, so I've got a marble jar here with me. Does anyone use these in school? Or have you ever used them in a class? You have? What did you use it for?
Used it for
Counting
counting to 100 things.
to 100 things. That's a good thing to use it for. Did I see a hand over here? Have you also? Was there someone else who had used a marble jar in class?
Instead of marbles, I use straws.
Okay, what are the straws for?
I use them for counting also.
They're counting to 100. That's a good thing to use them for. Has anyone ever been in a class where a teacher used it as like we're going to fill our marble jar up by following the rules, and at the end we'll maybe have a prize or a party? Have you done something like that? You did what?
With corks. So you put jar, and when you put close it with one, they would put it on the
With corks. That's really fun. They're kind of springy. Yeah, so I've got this marble jar here. So there is this famous woman who is a professor and a researcher, and her name is Brene Brown. And she used this analogy of a marble jar to explain to her daughter a little bit about trust. So Brene Brown's daughter, she came home from school one day and she was really upset. And she was crying, and her mom was like, oh no, what's wrong? And she said, well, I told these 2 girls at school something in confidence, meaning asking them not to tell, and then they told everyone else in the class. And then everyone was talking about it, people were making fun of me, and I felt really upset. So have any of you ever had something like that happen where you told someone something that you thought was in confidence and then they shared it and it didn't feel good? Yeah, I see some nods up here, some nods in the audience. Yeah, you haven't had that happen. I'm glad that you haven't had that happen. So her mom was like, well, when we have relationships with people, when we make friendships with them, part of that is trust. And she used this analogy of a marble jar. And she said, so building trust with someone is a little bit like filling up your marble jar. To begin with, there aren't any marbles in your jar. The jar is completely empty. And as we get to know one another and as we interact, we put these little marbles of trust in our jar. And she said, do you have any friends that you can think of that are marble jar friends? Do any of you have friends you can think of who are marble jar friends? You know you can trust them? Yeah, you do. So, and then her mom said, well, let's talk about what are the things that would add a marble, right? And what she found was it's actually really little things. So her daughter said, well, I have this one friend, and she's a marble jar friend, and I know because she always takes the hiney seat. And I was like, the what? And she said, yeah, if we're at lunch or something, and there isn't enough room on the bench, she will scoot her hiney all the way over so she's only half sitting on the bench, so that I can sit next to her. And her mom said, so that would put a marble in the jar, and she said, yeah, that puts a marble in that jar. She always makes room for me. And then she said, I have another friend at soccer And one day I got hit really hard with the ball, and she ran with me over to the first aid station. And while we were over there, she said, "Oh, look, your Oma and your Opa are here." And her daughter said, and she not only recognized that these were my grandparents, but she remembered the names that I used for them. She says, and that was really important to me. That showed me that I could trust her. So it's all these little things that help us to build trust with one another, to help us fill our marble jar. So if you want to, friends, and you don't have to, and you have something that you're thinking of that someone in your life does that shows that you can put a marble in your marble jar of trust and you wanted to share it as you put your marble jars back in, I would welcome anyone who wants to share one of their marble activities or interactions. You want to tell me something? You want to put it in? Perfect. Thank you so much. What about you? Yeah, and she helps you a lot. And I think that that's the big thing there, right? That word "a lot." Did she help you once? Does she help you over and over again? Yeah, that's a way that we build trust.
I got really hurt because I walked my bed. I'm falling off my bed, and my sister ran to my room.
You felt if your bed and your sister ran to you to make sure you were okay and help you?
She ran to my room and woke me up.
And woke you up to make sure you were okay. Thank you, Alana. Does anyone else want to put something in and tell something that would fill up their marble jar? Your sister, you trust your sister because she always helps you even when you can tell she doesn't really want to. I love the sisterly love that's happening up here. Yeah. Does anyone else want to either just put your marble in or share with me something that helps you build trust? Are there still marbles out there? Or have I collected them all? You got one still? Come on over, Juniper. Did you want to share something about trust? You don't have to. Okay. Thanks for putting your marble back in. Is that all of them? This was really helpful, friends. Thank you for helping me learn some more about how we build trust and helping to fill up our marble jar. You can see it's not full yet. Right? We're going to have to work some more on getting this all the way full so that we can have, well, then you can trust people with things like, when Brené Brown said, I told my friends these things and asked them not to tell. When we build up our trust, then we feel like we can do things like that and we know how the other person is going to treat us, right? Then we can become marble jar friends. I'd like to invite everyone here to join me in singing our young people out to their classroom upstairs. That's hymn number 413, Go Now in Peace. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the love of God surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace, go now in peace. May the love of God surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
Good morning. So now is the time for joys and sorrows, and just as we're starting a new year, let me remind everyone that if you have a joy or sorrow, you can send it to Joys and Sorrows, written out full, at uuithaca.org by 9 a.m. on Sunday morning, or you may fill out a slip and put it in the basket over there before the church service. And just to be mindful that our service is live streamed and then goes on channel 13 in terms of what you might want to say in those messages. In a spirit of reverence, love, and care, we take time now to bear witness to some of the joys and sorrows of our community, to share those events that call for our prayers and support, our praise and celebration. From Rita Rosenberg Barber, our dearest mother, Priscilla Barber, gently left this earth with a heart overflowing with love and light on January 1st. At 94, she was the personification of love and graciousness to her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. Our condolences and love go out to Don and Rita and the extended Barber family. From Jan Morgan, it is with a heavy heart that we share the news that Jim Scaly quietly passed on December 24th with his loving wife, Jan, by his side. Jim was loved and respected by so many, but the twinkle of his eye were his two grandchildren, Sasha and Noah. What a delight for him to spend as much time with them as he could. Please keep his family in our prayers. Funeral arrangements and details will be announced. I think there will be something in the spring. Also from Jane Kessler, there was a gathering to celebrate the life of David Kessler, brother and brother-in-law of Jane and Jim Karpinski, on January 7th here in our church sanctuary. That was yesterday. Our condolences go out to Jane and Jim and family. Appreciations to all who made the Christmas Eve service at Sage Chapel the beautiful event that it was. Reverend Peaches Gillette and the readers, Stephanie and all the musicians, Frank Campos, Tim Ball, Kathy McHugh, Erica, I'm sorry I don't have her last name, Josephine Jenkins and the rest of the kids, Emily and the choir, Adam, who stepped in for Emily at the last minute because Emily had COVID, and thanks for the funding that it provided to Babies First. So thank you all for that. For those we are holding in our thoughts, in our hearts, and perhaps in our prayers, let us call these names out loud into this community, into this space of healing and hope right now. We extend loving kindness to all in our world, and let us not forget to extend loving kindness to ourselves. Today, tomorrow, and beyond, let our hands be outstretched in kindness, and let us keep showing up to our lives and each other with an open heart, no matter what. Love and courage to us all. Blessed be, and amen.
Consider this an invitation to you. Yes, you. With all of your happiness and your burdens, with your hopes and regrets. An invitation if you feel good today, and an invitation if you do not, if you are aching. And there are so many ways to ache. Maybe your heart is heavy or burdened. Maybe it's troubled, and peace can take up residence only in a small corner, only on the edge. With all that's going on in the world and your life, it doesn't matter. All that you need for a deep and comforting peace to grow lies within you. Once it is in your heart, let it spread out into your life. Let it pour from your life into the world. And once it is in the world, let it shine upon all beings.
words are printed in your order of service, but they're very easy. I'm finding my way, I'm finding my way, I'm finding my way back to now. This week we'll just work on the melody, and in the coming weeks we'll add some harmonies and other layers to it. But this week we'll just keep it simple. Although Emily might join in with a third.
I am finding my way. I am finding my way. I am finding my way back to now. I am finding my way. I am finding my way. I am finding my way back to now. I am finding my way. I am finding my way. I am finding my way back to now. I am finding my way. I am finding my way. I am finding my way back to now. I am finding my way. I am finding my way. I am finding my way back to now.
Each week, we take an offering to sustain the important ministries and programs of this congregation and its presence in Ithaca. Giving to the plate is important. It is a symbol of our gratitude for this service and our ongoing commitment to support the work of this church. For those watching remotely, instructions for giving using your phone or computer will appear on your screen during the offertory music and in the information below the live stream on YouTube. For those attending in person, our ushers will pass the plate. Please join me in saying the offertory words printed in your order of service. May these gifts bring about connection, inspiration, engagement within these walls and beyond.
Spirit of life, help us make this church a refuge from the world, a place where the rules are different. May this be a place, for example, where no experience is necessary, where people are encouraged to risk new things, where a university administrator can try her hand at plumbing if she wants, or a plumber can help manage the finances, or a banker can teach 5-year-olds. May this be a place where people always feel that their efforts have been worthwhile and their energy well spent. And may this be a place where, as in Children's Baseball League, everyone gets to play. Spirit of love, help us make this church a refuge from the world, a place where the rules are different. May no one feel invisible here or feel worried about what others might be thinking of them. May no one be bored here. If a person isn't interested in what the minister or whomever is talking about today, may he or she be excited about the music or by a conversation in coffee hour. May this be a place where people are touched, if not by something said, then perhaps by something sung, or by the light coming in through the windows, or by the sense that the people who come here support one another. May this be a place where everyone feels safe to follow their thoughts wherever they lead, safe to believe whatever they must, and safe to share whatever is on their minds and whatever is in their hearts. Spirit of life and love, help us make this church a refuge from the world, a place where the rules are different, a place where our wells can fill up again, where we can be refreshed and renewed, so that when we return to the world with our batteries recharged, we can help transform the world into a place where the rules are different. When talking about human development or faith development, many theorists place trust as the first stage. Erickson describes trust versus mistrust as the initial stage of development. Fowler, in his development of faith theory, calls this the undifferentiated stage, when consistent positive or negative experiences in the environment can lead to infants developing a sense of trust or mistrust. In Natalie Briscoe's Dimensions of Faith Theory, she talks about the stages as more like facets that we move into and out of as we develop our own understanding of faith. And she includes a dimension 0, which she calls building trust. And whether you're an infant being raised in a faith community or an adult entering a new faith community, building trust is where we all have to begin. I would even argue that Freud's theory, which begins on this fixation for sustenance, food, safety, is really about building trust that you will be fed and cared for and protected. If we think about it, all of our relationships and all of the ways that we interact with the world are centered around this idea of trust. I spoke earlier during the Time for Wonder about Brene Brown and using the marble jar as an analogy for trust. And we're thinking of terms of our own one-on-one relationships, and we first meet someone, we have an empty jar. And then slowly this jar fills up with trust, made up by many small actions and interactions over time. Or it doesn't. We have experiences that show us that this person is not someone we can trust. And those experiences can be as small as not remembering someone's name or showing up late to a meeting. And this idea of trust as being central to ourselves, the slow building of trust that happens, it relates not just to our relationships with one another, but also our relationships with our community and our relationship to the world. And I think it's telling that both Erickson and Fowler talk about this initial stage in human and faith development as acquiring experiences from the outer environment that either instill a feeling of trust or assurance, or feelings of mistrust and fear. So here immediately we're talking about our initial relationship with the entire world around us. And this is really basic to begin with. If we drop something, it falls. Hopefully, if we are hungry, we gain nourishment. And that same process happens all throughout our lives. We meet new people, we enter new communities, we slowly build up trust or distrust over time. It happens here as well. We were all new here once. In fact, maybe today is your first time here. And if so, welcome. I am so grateful that you chose to trust us with some of your precious time. And it is those small cumulative interactions that teach us whether this is a safe place, a consistent place, a place where we know what to expect when we walk in the door. But what happens when the rules around us suddenly change? Almost 3 years ago, we experienced a collective breaking of trust. The very air around us was no longer safe. Our routines of school and work were broken. The things that we took for granted, like the availability of toilet paper and milk and baby formula, were no longer assured. Our ability to connect to one another was utterly and completely changed. The very foundation of our understanding about how the world works was, if not broken, horribly shaken and cracked. Even here, our building closed. This place was no longer the sanctuary that we had grown to trust it to be. Much of our programming stopped. Connections we had with one another were lost or weakened through inattention and neglect, not on purpose, but as a byproduct of the changes that we had to make to survive, to keep one another safe. And we are still grieving for this world that we thought we lived in, and figuring out what the rules for this new world are. Many of you know that I had my first bout with COVID over the holidays, followed almost immediately and existing concurrently with a strep infection, which then led to a very recent emergency room visit because my face swelled up to the point where I could not open my eyes. It was not a very merry holiday at my house, to put it lightly. And part of it is it feels like a betrayal of trust. Hadn't I done everything right? I've gotten every vaccine and booster that I'm eligible for. I test regularly. I still mask up when going out into public places, although I had relaxed my masking here recently in line with guidelines I helped create. I homeschooled my kids for 2 full years. But regardless, I was following the advice of the CDC. I didn't fall into any high-risk categories for age or underlying conditions. I was supposed to be, if not completely protected, because we all know that we're not, at least almost guaranteed to have a mild case, right? And yet, I spent the last 2 weeks sicker than I've ever been in my entire life. I actually just sent out an email as a first for me here a couple days ago to several members of this community in case I was not recovered enough to be here this morning. And I'm so glad that I am here with all of you. And this has been a growing problem, even before the pandemic started, this slow erosion of trust in our elected officials and leaders, the deluge of misinformation and contradictions, the feelings like we can't even trust experts in their fields, whether that is because of purposefully undermining them or because of the information that we're getting from places like the CDC feels politicized. And the question then becomes, how do we find our way back to that initial stage of development together? Because now is not the time for deconstruction. Although I can only imagine that in the last 3 years, we have all been offered up many opportunities to question our faith. No. Now is the time to return to centering this community on trust, a time to rebuild. Charles Feldman gives this simple definition of what trust is, and he says, Trust is choosing to make something important to you vulnerable to the actions of someone else. Trust is choosing to make something important to you vulnerable to the actions of someone else. But that only happens once trust has been established. And what is trust, really? Sure, it's small actions over time, but it's not every action. So what counts and what doesn't? Brené Brown offers an acronym, BRAVING. She says, because when we trust, we are braving connection with someone. She goes on to describe the parts of braving in this way. She says the B is for boundaries. I trust you, and if you are about your boundaries and you hold them and you're clear about my boundaries and you respect them, that is the beginning of trust. There can be no trust without boundaries. The R is for reliability. I can only trust you if you do what you're going to say once. She uses a scale as an analogy. She says a reliable scale is one that if I get it on it 100 times, it's going to say the same thing every time. So what reliability is you've got to do what you say you're going to do over and over and over again. You cannot earn and gain my trust if you're reliable once, because that's not the definition of reliability. A, and this is a huge one, is accountability. I can only trust you if when you make a mistake, you are willing to own it, apologize for it, and make amends. And I can only trust you if when I make a mistake, I am allowed to own it, to apologize for it, and to make amends. No accountability, no trust. The V is for vault, and this one I found really interesting. So the vault is, what I share with you, you will hold in confidence, and what you share with me, I will hold in confidence. But Brené Brown says what we don't understand is, and this came up over and over again in her research, is we don't understand that there's only one door to the vault. So here's where we lose trust with people. So if a good friend comes up to me and says, oh my God, did you hear about Caroline? They're getting a divorce and it is ugly, and I'm pretty sure her partner's cheating. So you've now just shared something with me that wasn't yours to share. And now my trust for you, even though you're gossiping and giving me the juice, now my trust for you is diminished. The vault isn't just about the fact that you hold my confidences. It's that in our relationship, I see that you acknowledge confidentiality. The I is for integrity. I can't trust you and be in a trusting relationship with you if you don't act from a place of integrity and encourage me to do the same. So what is integrity? So Brené Brown said she didn't like any of the definitions she read, so she came up with her own. And she said integrity has 3 pieces. It's choosing courage over comfort. It's choosing what's right over what's fast, fun, and easy, and practicing your values, not just professing your values. That's integrity. And I love that she's talking about values here, because this relates so directly to our UU community. Are we practicing our values? Are we living up to our commitments and covenants? She continues with N for non-judgment, and she says, I can fall apart. I can ask for help and be in struggle without being judged by you. And you can fall apart and be in struggle and ask for help from me without me judging you. And it's really hard because we are better at helping than we are at asking for help. And I personally relate so much to that statement. Real trust doesn't exist unless help is reciprocal and not judgmental. And the last aspect that she offers us is a G for generosity. She says that our relationship is only a trusting relationship if you can assume the most generous thing about my words, intentions, behaviors, and actions, and then check in with me. So if I screw up, if I say something or forget something, you will make a generous assumption. The example she gives is to say to someone who you trust, yesterday was my mom's 1-year anniversary of her death, and it was really tough for me. And I talked to you about it last month, and I was really hoping that you would have called. And I know about you that you care about me, and I know that you think it's a big deal. So I just wanted to let you know that that's what I've been thinking about. So we do this. We offer up generosity as opposed to not returning phone calls, not returning texts, holding on to that moment where we can spring, well, you forgot to call me on this one important date. You make a generous assumption about me, and then you check it out. Her explanation of what she means by generosity is mirrored in our covenant here at FUSIT, where we assume best intentions. In fact, a lot of this list, this braving acronym that she uses to help us better understand what trust is already a part of the foundation of who we are as UUs. Generosity is one of the newly proposed values from the Article 2 Commission. In every covenanted group that I have been in, there's always been confidentiality, accountability, and boundaries included in that covenant in some way. Looking at our principles, our sources, our values, our covenant, we should be pretty good at this, right? And yet, it can sometimes feel really challenging in practice. Because trust takes time. It takes consistency. And when trust has been broken, it can be really challenging to heal. Even more so than that initial building of trust was. When that jar falls to the floor and breaks, we are left with sharp, painful shards of glass mixed in amongst the marbles. And even if we wanted to pick everything back up and put it back together, it's not that simple. Maybe the jar isn't too broken. Maybe it's salvageable. And maybe some of the marbles were lost, but there are others that we can easily and safely scoop up and put back in. But sometimes it's all dust in tiny fragments. And it needs to be swept up and dumped in the trash to start all over again. So wherever you are on your journey, you are welcome here. We are working to create a beloved community centered around love and, yes, trust. And we will meet you where you are. We will do our best to respect your boundaries and be reliable, to be accountable to one another and to keep each other's confidence, to treat one another with integrity and not judge, to be generous in spirit and in practice. Because we want this to be a place that you trust, that you belong. I invite you to rise and join me in singing hymn number 360, Here We Have Gathered.
Circle of kinship, come and step inside.
Cherish your doubts, for doubt is the servant of truth. Question your convictions, for beliefs too tightly held strangle the mind and its natural wisdom. Suspect all certitudes, for the world whirls on, nothing abides. Yet, in our inner rooms full of doubt, inquiry, and suspicion, let a corner be reserved for trust. For without trust, there is no space for communities to gather or for friendships to be forged. Indeed, this is the small corner where we connect and reconnect with one another.
We extinguish this chalice, but not the truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we meet again. Our service is over. Let our true service begin. Go in peace.